Mr. President, we have about 5 minutes remaining in the majority's first hour, so I just want to.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are y'all doing? You're watching the Gabriel Speaks podcast news update. I'm so glad you joined me. It has been a crazy few weeks. Am I right? Am I right or am I right or am I right? Yes, I'm right. And we're going to start with Iran. We got a few topics we're going to cover, obviously. We're going to start with Iran, and we're going to talk about what's going on there, what's the recent stuff that's going on there. We're going to talk about this weird Melania Trump message that was delivered yesterday, super out of the blue and strange and almost completely contradictory to what the president has been saying. I mean, we've heard the president say, shut up, it's time to move on, he's dead, it doesn't matter anymore, so on and so forth. And then we have the First Lady come out and literally deliver a speech saying Congress needs to look into this more. We need to let the victims actually testify, which is something that, son of a bitch, I'm for. I mean, the victims have been the quietest voice. I'm sorry, I was trying to find the right way to put that, but the victims have been the quietest voice in all of this noise, right? We hear about the Pam Bondi breakdown, and we hear about these back and forths between these senators and the Wexners and all this shit, right? But all we have really heard so far from the victims is some interviews here and there. We haven't heard much from them in any of these recent investigations. I don't know if they've interviewed a single victim in these recent investigations. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and we've got a few interviews, and we have the actual Melania Trump strange speech. And then Ukraine and Russia have reached sort of a ceasefire. We'll talk about that a little bit as well, but we're going to start with Iran. What's been going on in Iran? We are in the middle of a 2-week, and I want to be clear that this is not a peace deal. This is a agreement to pause military operations. So basically, U.S. and her allies have agreed to pause on strikes against Iran. Pause on strikes is not the same as a ceasefire, and it's not the same as a peace agreement. It basically means that the strikes that we planned on making, the military strikes to their infrastructure, we're not going to do that for now. But then on the heels of that, the very next day, within 24 hours, I don't even think they waited a full day, Israel just bombarded Lebanon, killing hundreds, injuring more. Not good. You could see from some of the footage that it was really, really just some devastating attacks that Israel laid down on Lebanon. And the U.S. and Israel have come out to say, well, the pause on attacks did not include Lebanon. So that was your mistake, Iran, in assuming that we included Lebanon with those attacks. And so now in the new negotiations within this 2-week time frame we have, Iran is saying they're not even going to come to the table unless the U.S. and Israel agree that not striking Lebanon is on the table. And as it stands right now, the U.S. and Israel are not prepared to take that step. So it's been an eventful few days in the news.
We are just a day and a half into what's supposed to be a
And we're going to take a look here at some recent updates just in the news.
A 2-week ceasefire, and already some very serious cracks are emerging. President Trump declared complete and total victory, and yet his key requirement still has not been met. The Iranians say they will not allow traffic through the crucial Strait of Hormuz. The firing hasn't ceased entirely. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and Iran all reported new strikes yesterday.
No ceasefire ever goes without a little bit of choppiness.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth chalked it up to delayed communication among Iranian forces.
Iran would be wise to find a way to get the carrier pigeon to their troops out in remote locations.
Now, that is like, again, Hegseth being Hegseth. You know, like when you're winning, or not even winning, just when you have the stronger, let's say, hand. There's two kind of people. There's the smart ones and there's Hegseth.
To know not to shoot any longer.
An even bigger dispute erupted over this. More than 100 Israeli strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Overnight, the Israeli military said it killed the nephew of Hezbollah's leader in Beirut. The strikes started without warning.
Now that explosion in particular is just so insane because it literally looks like it's right in the middle of the city. And you see this missile go into this building and just absolutely level it. I mean, it is insane what some of this ordnance can do.
Hours after the ceasefire went into effect, Pakistani officials who brokered the ceasefire insisted it included Lebanon, but Israel and the White House disagreed.
I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't.
I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened.
Already, the battle lines are being drawn over Iran's nuclear program. Iran says it has the right to enrich uranium. Trump says there will be no enrichment.
Frankly, the president has all the cards here.
Democrats disagree.
The United States' diplomatic position and credibility in the world is dramatically worse because of this war.
Fragile, and now there is a new warning from federal.
Now that strike you saw, that was Iran taking out one of our, I guess, I can't remember the nickname. It's not Flying Fortress, Flying Control Tower, essentially. If you're familiar with the aircraft that we use, they have satellite dishes on top of them. They maintain communication with satellites up in space. They download information to the aircraft in the area. Essentially, they're a support service for the fighter pilots that are actually out there. And we only have a few of these things because some issues happen with the contracts on the renewals. So we just have a few of them. And one of them was parked in, I believe it was Saudi Arabia. And of all things for the Iranian missiles to hit, they strike a direct strike right on that aircraft. So either it was just like they won the lottery, or they had some kind of intelligence telling them, look, one of their important aircraft are going to be parked here unguarded. You can hit it with one of your missiles, and they only have like 14 of these things or 13 of these things. It's not going to be easy for them to just replace it. So if you want to be a thorn in their side, take out this jet. And that kind of intelligence, it's believed, came from Russia. So it's believed that Russia, of course, is helping Iran. We know that Iran has helped Russia. They've supplied them a big part of their drones. I think I'm not sure what they're called, but they're the drones that they basically, their whole mission is to just fly into shit and blow it up, right? Drone missiles or whatever. And now we have this new warning in the United States about systems getting hacked.
Officials, they say that Iran-linked cyber attacks are targeting U.S. energy and water systems with the goal of causing disruptive effects inside the United States. So here on the homeland, authorities are telling us that some hacks have already led to operational disruption and financial loss at specific facilities.
That's crazy. So they're not getting more specific than that, but already some hacks have caused some financial loss at certain facilities. It'll be interesting to see what that means. Ron, I see you, buddy. Glad to see you here. Always happy to have you join us. So if you got a system that's, I don't know, being slow or things acting funky, let's hope it's not related to this, right?
Well, we know that the president had a full head of steam going into that meeting. White House press secretary said he was going to express his disappointment with NATO, the fact that NATO allies didn't back him in the way that he thought they should have in the Iran war. After the meeting, Rutte confirmed in an interview that Trump was, in his words, clearly disappointed and expressed that. And then Trump put an even finer point on it later in the day with a post where he said NATO wasn't there when we needed them and they won't be there if we need them again.
If NATO can help, obviously NATO is there.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on Thursday said that some alliance members were initially a bit slow to provide assistance to the U.S. in Iran.
In fairness, they were also a bit surprised.
But he added there is now a, quote, massive amount of support, including basing and logistics. The comments come a day after his White House meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, who has criticized European allies in recent weeks for what he said was inadequate support. Diplomats who spoke to Reuters said Rutte told European governments that Trump wants concrete commitments within days to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. Rutte is also working to defuse a crisis after Trump said he was considering withdrawing from the 32-member transatlantic alliance. On Thursday, a senior White House official told Reuters that Trump has discussed with advisors the option of removing some U.S. troops from Europe. The official, who requested anonymity to discuss internal deliberations, said no decision has been made, and the White House has not directed the Pentagon to draw up concrete plans for a troop reduction on the continent. European leaders are now under pressure to show they are quickly making tangible plans to help secure the Strait of Hormuz.
This alliance is not whistling past the graveyard, as you would say in the United States. Allies recognize, and I recognize, we are in a period of profound change in the transatlantic alliance.
The U.S. in escorting those oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, we don't need too much help, and we don't need any help, actually. In fact, we just put out a notice. I was watching over the last couple of weeks, and all of our NATO allies were very much in favor of what we did. They thought it was very important. We were just discussing it, actually. Very important that we take out the nuclear threat from Iran, and we've done that very strongly, very powerfully. We've wiped out their Navy, wiped out their military in every aspect. Their Air Force is now decimated. They have no Air Force, no Navy. They have no radar. Their radar is entirely gone. Their anti-aircraft machinery is gone. Everything is gone. Their leaders are gone. I guess one of their top person was, they say, a lot of people say their actual top was killed yesterday, along with somebody else who was responsible for the killing. The man that was responsible for the killing of 32,000 people over the last 2 weeks, he was in charge of the killing of protesters. It's an evil group. I mean, they've killed much more than 32,000 people. And the man who was responsible for that was also killed yesterday. And all of the NATO allies agreed with us, but they don't want to, despite the fact that we helped them.
So this is where it gets dicey. You saw me throw up the executive order 12333. That's not made up. That was an executive order put in place by Ronald Reagan. And the executive order basically says that no one employed by the U.S. government, no one, can order an assassination. I was of the belief, I had always been told, when I was in the service over 20 years ago, we would have these briefings about Geneva, the Geneva Conventions, the laws, the rules of war. And it was always my impression that taking out a leader of a state is against the rules of war. But that's where it gets dicey, because if the leader is causing harm, essentially. I'm trying to dumb this down. But if the leader is basically aggressively, actively, trying to take over other nations, starting wars, things of that nature, it is in some cases allowed. So Reagan stepped in the 80s, and he essentially attempted to fill that gap with the executive order. Right. And Ron makes a fantastic point. It's war. Right. We used to laugh in these briefings, Ron, at when they would tell us about the rules of war, because it's like, are you kidding? Give me a fucking break. But there are, technically. And so Reagan steps in with this executive order in the 80s and says, hey, let's just make it real simple. No one in the U.S. government can assassinate someone from another government. We just cannot order it. Now, we know that has been violated multiple times since that executive order has gone into place. Forget about how many times before. All the things our CIA got us wrapped up in. And it's amazing that he's not getting a lot of challenge on straight up kidnapping the leader of one country and assassinating the leader of Iran, attempting to assassinate his son. I'm not sure if he's dead or not yet, but if he's not dead, he's definitely in a bad way, apparently. So it's interesting. And then I'm not sure what he's trying to do here, because on one hand, he's saying we don't need your help. On the other hand, he's saying, well, we wanted your help and you're not giving it to us. Like in like 2 seconds. And then we have one of the leaders in NATO saying, well, to be fair, like, we didn't even think you were serious. Like, we didn't think you were actually going to attack Iran. So to ask us to help you clean up the Strait of Hormuz issue in a matter of days is, you have to give us time. These are giant bureaucracies. Like it or not, that's what they are. And Trump doesn't like that. He doesn't like to wait on anything. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, Iran, essentially, there's rumors of them like charging a toll to get through the Strait of Hormuz. The problem is a lot of the damage has been done already. Like, we've already lost a significant amount of our helium for years, like 30% of the supply. We're going to see, it's going to get bad, because as we've talked about on this show, helium, it goes into a lot of stuff that we use on a daily basis.
Them so much. We have thousands of soldiers in different countries all over the world, and they don't want to help us. Nobody wants to have Iran, or anybody, but nobody wants to have Iran with a nuclear, because these people are crazy. They're absolutely crazy, and they're vicious, violent.
President Macron has just said in the last hour that he will never join a task force in the Strait of Hormuz until hostilities finish. Yet yesterday you said...
Who said that? Who said?
President Macron of France. What's your reaction to that, sir?
Well, he'll be out of office very soon, so we'll have to see.
There were no Iranian missiles in the air over Tel Aviv last night, and my contacts in Iran also tell me they had the first peaceful sleep in weeks with no Israeli or U.S. attacks. Millions of people in this region are breathing a great sigh of relief, but not in Lebanon or the north of Israel. The Iranian-backed militia Hezbollah fired rockets into the north this morning in retaliation for Israel's ferocious attack on Hezbollah in Lebanon yesterday, both in the countryside and right in the capital city of Beirut. Those strikes killed 245 people and injured more than 1,000 more. And in fact, those attacks might yet kill the ceasefire. Iran's deputy foreign minister told...
Okay, do you sometimes, like... I'm not trying to get on any kind of bandwagon here, but do you sometimes feel like, what the fuck, Israel? I mean, we literally just brokered a deal with Iran. Not a peace deal, not a ceasefire, but a pause a pause on attacks, and in less than 24 hours, Israel is murdering over 200 people in Lebanon. That's like a city getting blown up you're seeing right there. What the fuck? I mean, I remember growing up, it was like, my generation, it was peace in the Middle East, peace in the Middle East, peace in the Middle East. It's the other groups, it's not Israel, that are the provocateurs. And I know that's the case in a lot of times. But this last decade or so, it seems like they've become more the aggressor. And that debate, that's for another show. But you see stuff like this and it's like, oh my God, Israel, what? Are you trying to turn another city into rubble? Fuck. Yeah, I agree with you, D. Martin. Israel wants to. They have drawn us into it, right? I mean, I've said it multiple times. Like, this fight with Iran, this is Israel's fight. We've given them weapons, we've given them money, we've given them training. They most likely have shit we don't even have, as far as with the capability to kill people. And somehow we are the ones that have to pull off all these strikes against Iran. We are the ones that are using all of our fucking ammunition. We are the ones fighting this fight that's not really our fight. It's so crazy.
Told British television just a few hours ago that Iran is only going to send its team to Pakistan for those talks that Nancy mentioned with the U.S. this weekend to end the war if Israel stops the attacks on Hezbollah. But Israel's prime minister has posted on social media this morning they are going to continue. So it's a standoff, and today is going to be critical. Meanwhile, a little more on the Straits of Hormuz. The very latest we're getting from Iran's deputy foreign minister is that the straits are technically open but mined. So Iran is saying any ships wanting to sail through have to arrange safe passage with the Iranians.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, he has asked Army Chief of Staff General Randy George to leave his post. George is the Army's most senior general. A defense official says Hegseth asked General George to retire immediately.
I mean, normally when you become a service chief or a chairman of the Joint Chiefs or the vice chair, normally those are 4-year terms. That is not set in stone. That can change, and certainly we've seen a lot of changes. You know, with Pete Hegseth as Secretary of War or Secretary of Defense, he's removed about a dozen flag and general officers. Well, he replaced him with Christopher Neve, and that's kind of an interesting thing. Neve was the senior military advisor for Hegseth as Secretary of War, so there is a certain continuity, if you will, that the senior advisor gets moved into being, moved up into being the head of the Army. And you got to remember that Hegseth was a former Army officer. You know, he'd served for many years. He'd served over in a variety of assignments around the world, combat in Iraq. So he knew the Army. He understands the Army. He's probably a little partial to the Army.
So that's like a little concerning, right? Or he's going through and cleaning house of generals that are really established, high ranking. They run a lot of functions. They manage a lot of projects, a lot of programs. And that's difficult to do in the United States military, and replacing them with buddies he served with. I don't think that's a good move.
President Donald Trump set what he is calling his final deadline for Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz. That deadline is tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Now, this is just a couple days ago, if y'all remember, like less than 48 hours ago. This is what we were looking at.
Eastern time, but overnight and even this morning, strikes in Iran continued. This morning, we're seeing the first reports of strikes on bridges in Iran. Iranian authorities saw airstrikes have taken out a railway bridge, a train station, and a highway bridge in the country. Now, neither the United States nor Israel have immediately claimed those attacks. President Trump is now lobbying new threats at Iran. In just the last hour, he said, in part, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again."
Okay. What the fuck? I know y'all have probably heard it from so many people, you know, that are trying to. It's just, it's so crazy that our president would say that, y'all. I know, and people are like, "Oh, he's just negotiating. Look, nothing happened." Wipe out a whole civilization? Like, when? Okay, when's the last time you heard the leader of a country say they were going to wipe out an entire civilization? Think real hard. Frankly, I don't care. Like, that's not a negotiating tactic. That's like threatening nuclear apocalypse. Wipe out an entire civilization. This is our president.
Today, a major announcement from Iranian officials. All ships, including American vessels, are now allowed to pass through the Iranian-controlled Strait of Hormuz.
The Strait of Hormuz is open. Of course, there are technical restrictions because of the war zone and because of many arrangements that Iran did during the war.
Iran issued this map showing alternative traffic routes in the strait to prevent vessels from potentially colliding with sea mines, retaining control of the strait by saying all vessels in the area must coordinate with Iran's Navy. The White House says reopening the strait was one of President Trump's red lines in negotiating a ceasefire deal that has otherwise proved fragile less than 24 hours in.
So it's open, but you're going to want to register with us, and that way we can navigate you through, because there's a shit ton of mines out there. And boy, could you imagine you have this wonderful job where you're able to supply for your family, you're able to provide for your family. You work on this giant tanker that brings whatever in and out. That you get paid well because you do work in that region, but you don't really expect anything to happen. And one day you're eating a can of beans on the dock of the tanker, drifting through Hormuz, and boom, lights out, pal. You hit a mine. Holy shit. So yeah, so the strait is open, but you got to consult with Iran so they can guide you through it without exploding.
Trump says U.S. troops will remain in place in and around Iran, and if a long-term deal isn't reached and complied with, quote, then the shooting starts, bigger and better and stronger than anyone has ever seen before. But now Iran accuses the U.S. and Israel of violating the ceasefire. Israel continues its offense against Iranian-backed Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Yesterday, the largest strike since the war started, killing at least 182 people alone and displacing more than 1 million Lebanese people, according to the country's health.
On my desk right now to review.
That's what's crazy. Like, not only did they kill a couple hundred of people, took a couple hundred lives, they displaced over 1 million people. There's 1 million people that had a house yesterday. They don't have a house now. What the fuck? Man. So I'm glad with Iran that at the current moment in time, we have a pause on attacks. I think that is wonderful. Iran it's interesting because they're almost like we hear them talking out of both sides of their mouths, right? We hear from one side that they're not even going to come to the table unless we say Lebanon is on the table as far as attacks. But then we hear later in the day from some other source in Iran that they will come to the table because they're more concerned about Iran at this point than Lebanon. But I don't know if we even know who's really in charge at this point. And the other frustrating thing is this is all coming from news organizations that Trump has told us are fake for the last decade. We're really in a pickle here, aren't we, as far as getting news on what's really going on in Iran. So do your own research when it comes to the war. Don't just accept some of these headlines for what they are. The other strange thing, I said it at the beginning of the show here today, is we literally had our president telling people to stop talking about Epstein. He's dead. The country needs to move on. The nation needs to move on. Anybody talking about it is, just wasting time, and it's a hoax and this and that and the other. But then yesterday, the First Lady came out and called for a congressional investigation, which includes victim statements, victim testimony, which is wonderful. But it is the exact opposite of what the president has been saying. I think that that's very strange.
Directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed. In February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
Good afternoon. The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. Fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been circulating on social media for years now. Be cautious about what you believe. These images and stories are completely false. My name has never appeared in court documents, depositions, victim statements, or FBI interviews surrounding the Epstein matter. I have never had any knowledge of Epstein abuse of his victims. I was never involved in any capacity. I was not a participant, was never on Epstein's plane, and never visited his private island. I have never been legally accused or convinced of a crime in connection with Epstein's sex trafficking, abuse of minors, and other repulsive behavior. The false smears about me from mean-spirited and politically motivated individuals and entities looking to cause damage to my good name, to gain financially and climb politically, must stop. Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony. Each and every woman should have her day to tell her story in public if she wishes, and then her testimony should be permanently entered into the congressional record. Then, and only then, we will have the truth. Thank you.
To be clear,
I mean, I wonder if she understands what she's saying, because there are like multiple victims that said her husband, the president, was involved, that they would pass around women, some of them underage. And so if you, it was my understanding the White House was against having the victims testify, because then her husband, the president, is going to get dragged into it 100%. And so the timing of this message, everything about it seems strange. It just seems strange. Like, because if you've read some of the victim statements that include both Epstein and her husband, it's a tough read. If you care about people, that is. So I went around and tried to get some other perspectives on this. And I think a lot of journalists on both sides are feeling kind of the same, a little confused. And maybe that was the point. Let's take a look here. I think it's MS, and then we have Fox afterwards.
none of those things, nothing about Melania Trump, was the Epstein headline that was dogging Donald Trump in the days immediately leading up to the start of the war he began with Iran. In those days, it was news of a woman who alleged sexual and physical assault by Donald Trump when she was a child. That story was all over the news, including in right-wing.
Yeah, y'all. 13. And if you read some of their statements, if you're like me, you'll get angry reading them. I mean, it's not good.
Outlets. Importantly, it's a story that Donald Trump denies. But today, for reasons that aren't completely clear, Melania Trump grabbed the Klieg lights and thrust them back, not just to Donald Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein, but her own.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what the fuck a Klieg light is. Anybody? We know what a Klieg light? That might be before my time. I don't know.
The question we have today is, why did she say those things?
Yeah, Nicole, that is the question that we're all asking today. In fact, I just got off a very quick call before we went to air with President Trump, who said he was in the middle of a war meeting and that he couldn't talk for very long and had to go, but that actually he had no prior knowledge to the topic that Melania Trump, his wife, was going to be touching upon today in his statement. In her statement, he then repeated that he had to go, but before we hung up the phone, he said that she didn't know him, presumably referring to Jeffrey Epstein. This was a really remarkable statement that we heard from the First Lady. It was something that my colleague, Jake Traylor, when he pinged one of his White House sources, said that many people in the building were not prepared for this. She also called on a public hearing that centered around Epstein's victims. This is a sea change from the message that we've been hearing from the White House, specifically from President Trump. The last time he was asked about this, he actually scolded a reporter. The reporter at the time was CNN's Caitlin Collins, scolded her for even asking the question, and then said it was a time for the country to move on.
Who has accused, she said, quote, I've never been accused of a crime. Who's accused Melania Trump of a crime?
No one has. And there was a lack of specificity in the statement that the First Lady made, which is why there's really so many unanswered questions here. So it's extremely unclear what she is talking about. There have been some unsubstantiated reports about the First Lady's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but again, none of those things are really anything that are recent or have been substantiated.
Luke Broadwater, she said, Melania Trump saying, quote, I never had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not Epstein's victim. Images and stories are false. Do you know what images and stories she's talking about?
I don't, and everyone I've talked to today about this doesn't know either. You know, if you go online, you can find any number of false rumors and crazy theories about someone. And there's speculation that she was looking online, saw some things that she didn't like about herself, and decided to call this press conference. But no one really knows what prompted this exactly. I will say politically, it is in some ways undercutting the message that her husband has been putting out there, which is that the country should move on from this matter. Or there's nothing to see here. Stop looking into it. And here she is coming out, having a major press conference, which is garnered lots of attention, and is calling for victims to testify and for there to be hearings. So it's a very, very different message that she came out on her own and did it without Donald Trump by her side. So
it's very weird. And the first thing you do is you go digging, because what the fuck are you talking about? And some of the stuff that come out is there's this lovely image here where, you know, that's not a good look. Now I'm scrolling through X, so some of these aren't going to be legitimate, but some of them are questionable. Like this is a little strange. Here's Ron Jeremy. I don't know. You tell me if that's fake or not. I don't know. A lot of strange stuff. You can see here, I'm not going to repeat this, but you can see some of the highlighted words here. And this is just from one of the many depositions that this is another victim that Melania is saying she wants to come forward and testify to Congress. So,
you know, politically,
I wonder if Melania is just pissed at Trump. I don't know. It's just very, very strange. Yeah, it's very strange.
So it's a very, very different message that she came out on her own and did it without Donald Trump by her side. So, you know, politically, it's very interesting what's happening here between the president and the First Lady and their diverging messages.
I want to bring in Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. He's a ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Are you in possession of any materials that haven't been released to the public yet that suggest any of the things Melania Trump today denied? Quote, I never had a relationship with Epstein. Quote, I'm not Epstein's victim. Quote, I'm not a witness or a victim to any crimes. Quote, I have never been accused of a crime.
We're not. She is publicly calling for a hearing with survivors that we have been asking for months and have been told every time that it wasn't possible. Chairman Comer has not scheduled it. This is the same administration that has called this investigation a hoax. I mean, just a day ago, the acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, said that the DOJ was not moving forward on any part of the Epstein investigation. This has been an investigation the White House has pushed aside. There have been efforts by survivors to meet with the White House, to meet with the DOJ. And so for the First Lady to come out and to essentially say that she is calling on this public hearing for survivors and to kind of put herself in the center of the story is something that we certainly were not expecting today, but we certainly welcome.
Off the top at 5 today, a rare speech from Melania Trump.
The First Lady is denying.
And so this is I think it's a Fox News outlet.
That she had any close relationship with infamous sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Local 10's Ross Ketchke is live in our nation's capital with what she's calling on Congress to do. Ross?
Good evening. This was a fairly surprising public address from the First Lady. We knew she was
I'm just going to say this guy stole my compatriot's introduction. Good evening, Mr. Flack Magnet. And he did it completely wrong. So Mr. Ross Ketchke can expect a cease and desist coming from Flack Magnet very soon.
planning to speak from the White House, but we did not know ahead of time it was going to be about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. First Lady Melania Trump fiercely denying any relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, saying her only interactions with the man who the world now knows as an infamous sex trafficker came at parties in the 2000s. The First Lady does appear in the trove of Epstein documents released by the Department of Justice, including this photo taken at Mar-a-Lago in the year 2000, standing shoulder to shoulder with her husband, the now president, as well as Epstein and his longtime accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, they won't show these other photos. Look, if y'all have X or Twitter, whatever you call it, whatever social media, you can discern for yourself. Just type in Epstein, Melania Trump. I'm not going to just scroll because some of this stuff is awful and clearly not legitimate. But some of it is. And some of the pictures, like the one we saw with her sitting on Epstein's lap as he's giving her a smooch, those could very well be real.
The files also reveal an email exchange between Melania and Maxwell, something the First Lady says is not evidence of a close relationship. The scandal has rocked Washington over the last year. Women who were abused and trafficked by Epstein making multiple appearances on Capitol Hill, pushing lawmakers and the Department of Justice to investigate how he was able to carry out his crimes for so long, all while maintaining friendships with some of the world's most powerful men. The First Lady now calling on Congress to have those women share their stories in a public hearing. Clear why the First Lady decided to make this lengthy statement about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell today. This has, of course, been one of the biggest scandals to rock Washington in recent years, but today was the first time the First Lady has addressed it at length and in public.
And Ross, Congress is moving forward with its own investigation into Epstein. What's their next step in the process?
Well, there are still some more high-profile interviews for the House Oversight Committee that is investigating Jeffrey Epstein. Some of the next will include former Microsoft CEO Bill Gates, as well as current U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. It's also still not clear as of this afternoon whether or not former Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was fired just 1 week ago by President Donald Trump, will appear for her testimony on Capitol Hill, which is scheduled to happen this coming Tuesday.
Tonight, the town of Palm Beach police investigated Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell 3 years before the 2005 case that led to sex crime charges and a conviction in Florida. A newly uncovered 2001 police report shows students at what was then Palm Beach Atlantic College, now university, told detectives Maxwell was recruiting young women on campus for Epstein.
For years, we believe the first Palm Beach investigation into Epstein began in 2005. But records now show detectives opened a prostitution inquiry in 2001 after Palm Beach Atlantic students reported Maxwell recruiting them on campus.
It was September 2001 at Palm Beach Atlantic College. A 20-year-old student wrote she was approached out of the blue by Ghislaine Maxwell and asked if she were interested in secretarial work. I said no. What about for $200? I said sure. The student recounted the job quickly escalated into giving Jeffrey Epstein massages, describing all-over touch of her body, by the pool, in the kitchen, and upstairs where she says encounters became more intimate. In December 2001, Palm Beach police were referred a case from West Palm Beach police titled Epstein Prostitution. The report states Maxwell was hiring young, beautiful, unmarried women, getting them from the PBAU campus to answer phones at her Palm Beach mansion. 3 students told police Epstein touched 2 of them inappropriately and that Maxwell wanted names of other girls because she needed a large pool to call. 4 months later, after interviewing 3 women who confirmed they worked at the mansion and observed topless women and frequent massages, detectives concluded, although it appears as though unusual activity is occurring at this residence, at this time, no illegal activity has been reported or detected. But the newly surfaced notes dated October 2021, and it's unclear if they were part of a later lawsuit, do include additional claims that were not detailed in that 2001 report. The student described a young woman who lived at Epstein's house and had a room upstairs. They had guests that stayed upstairs. She took care of those guests, and my understanding is that's how she got to live there. The student also wrote that she was paid $200 an hour in $100 bills, and that Vice Squad officers eventually asked her to continue going back to gather information. They asked if I would continue to go back and get info. I said no.
Tonight, former Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder tells me his officers never informed him of this 2001 investigation and confirms he was surprised his detectives did not mention it once the 2005 case began.
Were you? Were you really surprised? So why is that important? Because that shows that report came out a couple weeks ago, and that shows that in 2001, he was being investigated. So they already knew who this guy was, and he was, excuse me, actively recruiting. And while it might have started at the colleges, it ended up at the high schools. And yes, if you go digging in the documents, you will find that federal prosecutors told police to back off the Zorro Ranch investigation. That is a fact. And that is why recently we had folks, officials, digging around Zorro Ranch looking for bodies. Goodness. So that's where we're at with Iran. Now, Ukraine and Russia have agreed to a ceasefire, which is fucking fantastic. The problem is that it's only temporary. It is not a permanent ceasefire. It is only over the Easter holiday, which I believe runs from today until the 12th. So it's a shame it can't be longer. But at least for a few days, we'll have soldiers over there not having to shoot at each other. At least we hope. Now, some breaking news. This is live. We've got the Artemis about to splash down. So we're gonna, while we're here, we're gonna check this out live.
A major burn having been successfully completed. The crew is now preparing to complete the configuration of the crew cabin, a final stowage capability, and an opportunity to put other items away that they will not need during the entry phase. They'll move into their entry checklist about 2 hours from now at about 4 p.m. Central Time. Events will start to accelerate in terms of time as we approach the point at which entry interface will begin.
So yeah, looks like the crew there is getting ready to re-enter and splash. I guess that's, gonna be the most dangerous part. From what I understand, they had, speaking of helium, apparently they had some kind of helium leak in the upper atmosphere, and but we're told that shouldn't affect the capsule. It shouldn't affect the re-entry or the splashdown. So I don't think they would let things proceed if that was the case. They tend to typically fall on the side of safety and caution, if you will, over there at NASA. They're definitely a measure twice, cut once organization. So I'm sorry, the gentleman was saying something, and I kind of jumped right over because I wasn't sure if we were going to see them actually go through the reentry at this moment. What I was saying is, we know with Iran where we're at, we have the 2-week pause between America and Iran. Now, the thing to remember is that doesn't include Lebanon. So while America is not necessarily attacking Lebanon, Israel is bombarding Lebanon. They just hit them so hard. Over 200 people died. Over 1 million people are homeless. The deaths are a tragedy, but there needs to be more focus on where are these people going to go. You look at Gaza, when you completely level a city, where are you supposed to go to sleep for the night? Where are you supposed to call home? Where can you even go build a home where it's not going to get blown up? I mean, these are things that are crazy to have to ponder. And the further we go into this Iran thing, the further we go into any of these fights, it's not just the deaths, it's how many people we're going to displace. It's already in the millions. People that have nowhere to go, no home. That's insane. The Ukraine-Russia agreement is for over the Easter holiday. So while it's short term, it's good to see they were able to at least reach an agreement on that, which may bring them closer to an actual agreement. Now that we know they can...
We're going to need a copy of that photo when you guys get back.
Okay, they're just joking around. I will switch over if they're doing anything important here. So we know that they can communicate. We know that Russia and Ukraine, if they can come to this ceasefire agreement over the holiday, we know that they can come to a longer term agreement, hopefully. So at least those lines of communication are established. They're there. I don't know what they are because from what I understood, Zelensky and Putin couldn't even stand in the same room together. But however that's happening, we'll pray that that continues and that they broker some kind of a deal. I mean, who knew it would be Turkey that brokered the pause between the United States and Iran? Now, the Epstein piece, what we covered last with Melania, I'm at a little bit of a loss, as you can see. I mean, she literally just came out yesterday with this statement. And it is counter to what we've heard the president say so far. And it really makes you wonder because there's so many things to consider. There's what she's saying. There's the timing of it. There's the fact that she called this meeting herself, and the president said he didn't even know. I don't believe that. I mean, I do feel like Trump has a strong say in what Melania does in her day-to-day. Call me crazy. Just what I think. So the timing of it, what she actually said, the fact that she's calling for victims to come and speak in front of Congress, victims that have implicated the president in some just terrible acts. She wants that on the congressional record. I don't even know what to think of that. But it's definitely some food for thought. And while we're waiting for this, let me see if we can get some volume here.
Jackie, we were talking about seats. I'm in instruction 337 of 392, and then can you repeat that call?
Looks like they're going through some
Yep,
protocol stuff.
The prop post-burn reconfig is complete, and there is no need for the remainder of 23.4. You can consider that closed out.
Could you imagine
Remainder of 23.4.
part of your job is like
Closed out, copy.
you're just doing your job and it gets broadcast? Oh man, I don't think I could work under that pressure. I get nervous just doing this sometimes, and this is for fun. Actually perform your work in front of a audience of potentially millions.
I'm not looking at this in steps, just instructions. Confirm that's the BFS configured for the burn. Subsequent steps as well.
Those screens are almost as big as the ones in the new Teslas. Almost.
Affirm all the way through instruction at 347 can be skipped.
All right, well, let's check this out for a moment. And I'll be right back with you folks as we watch the Artemis 2 re-entry and splashdown will be happening very soon.
Okay, I see that takes us to step 24. I did not do any of the remaining steps in step 23, and that is over to you, MCC. We're moving back to camp.
Houston copies and concurs. And Victor and the rest of the Integrity crew, the only DPC-related topic we had for you this morning was to sync up on cabin config and get a status of where you are in the procedure.
Okay, Jackie, we're with you on that. We are complete through step 7. Actually, step 8 now is complete as well. And step 15 is complete. And we'll update you on the rest as we go along.
We copy all.
This is Mission Control, Houston. 8 days, 20 hours, 33 minutes into the flight of Integrity on the Artemis 2 mission. We are under 5 hours now from the splashdown of Integrity in the Pacific off the coast of San Diego to wrap up this lunar flyby mission. Integrity systems are in excellent shape. The recovery team on the USS Mertha out in the Pacific is at the ready. The ship is basically parked in the right position to be able to expedite a recovery of the crew following splashdown, and after the vehicle has been powered down, Navy helicopters, divers, other recovery personnel will move alongside the capsule to set up a large inflatable raft called a front porch that will be used to extract the crew members in one by one after the hatch is opened. That process of extracting the crew is timelined at least and has been practiced to occur some 45 minutes to an hour after splashdown. The weather conditions out in the Pacific are ideal for today's splashdown. We're talking winds just 10 knots and wave heights less than 4 feet. You couldn't ask for better weather for this homecoming for Integrity, the first time that a crew will have splashed down in the vehicle in the Artemis program. We completed the final major maneuver of the mission using the European Service Module's thrusters a short time ago. That was the return trajectory correction number 3 burn that basically fine-tuned ever so slightly the trajectory and the path of Integrity and sweetened the angle of attack so that we hit the right corridor coming in over the Pacific Ocean with onboard computers honed in on the splashdown zone, some 1,701 nautical miles downrange from the start of entry interface. Splashdown is scheduled at 7:07 and 7 seconds p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time, 2.5 hours before sunset at the splashdown site.
Well, you know what? Given that they're not even strapped down yet, I wonder how close we actually are. Looks like they're doing a lot of prep work there. So yeah, I think we got a ways to go before they're actually strapped in, ready to re-enter. But if we're still going, when they get there, we will absolutely cut back over there. We did have a recent video of a strike in Iran, one of the strikes towards the end before the pause on strikes was ordered.
ساختمون لرزید بیشرف 3 تا موشک پشت سر هم اومد دیدی؟ هیچکی هم تو خونه هانی همه در رفتن. اومد اونا دیدی؟ اومد موشک از اینجا میاد، از سمت چپ بیاد.
There go the birds.
What?
Yeah, when the birds take off, Time to go.
از اینجا میاد اینجا. برو بریم.
Wow, what an insane situation. And then this is I can't say if this is legitimate or not, but this looks to be one of the jets that was possibly shot out of the sky. And we did end up rescuing both pilots.
아, 수레스나.
Pretty crazy. Now we did just have an update come across the desk here. Surging gas prices are going to drive inflation to the highest level in 2 years. Oil prices exploded, and inflation shot up to its highest level in 2 years in March. And consumer sentiment is at a record low, and so I'm sure that a war is not helping that. Okay. Now, I got a message from Fleck that he might be hopping in here. So what I did is I loaded just the Melania speech from yesterday. And we'll see if we can get him to hop in here. But what's crazy, again, about the Melania thing is that this is complete opposite to what her husband has been saying, the president, which has been consistently saying, folks, it's time to get over this. It's time to move forward. It's time to move on. He's dead. The story's over, so on and so forth. And she's calling for these victims to testify at Congress. And I do think it has to do with some of the rumors and some of the pictures that have been going around with her. You know, I don't know. Maybe she got online and saw something she didn't like and decided to speak up. But I don't know that it's that easy. I feel like everything, any message she would send out would be very controlled. Now, this site that you're looking at, this is a Gmail site, which we have referenced a lot on the Epstein Files episodes. And if you go into the Gmail site and you just search this name right here, look at that. 7,845 emails. Almost as many as Trump. And some of these are just like news updates and stuff like that, but some of them seem kind of personal. Dear Jeff, as previously discussed between you and Ariane, Edmond de Rothschild is deeply involved in the building and financing of the infrastructure in Europe. Edmond de Rothschild has an outstanding track record, history, and presence in European infrastructure. This is an email that was sent because when one of the Rothschild's banks was about to go under, they reached out to Jeffrey Epstein, a known pedophile. You can check the date on this. 2017, well after the cases. And on top of the cases, you had plenty of innuendo after that. of things that he was doing on this island. So this Rothschild group knew what Epstein was about. And they still reached out to him for money. I mean, you cannot, and we said this on the last Epstein episode about Alex Acosta, like, you cannot help a person harm children and call yourself a good person. I wonder how some of these people sleep at night. I really do. This is one of the most powerful families ever. Ever. I mean, so powerful that the money they wield, they have a legal representation for all these different members of the family. And there's like a Rothschild Group A, a Rothschild Group B, Rothschild Group... It's insanity. But here you have a representative from this investment firm essentially trying to get a bridge loan from Jeffrey Epstein. So they're talking up the bank and why it's a good investment and why they should do a bridge loan with them and so on and so forth. And again, this is 2017. Does that make him guilty? No. We have how many professors that are still teaching at universities that sent Jeff Epstein a similar email reaching out for money? So I guess that doesn't make you guilty, but it does make you kind of a scumbag. There's a lot of places you can go to get money if you're a legitimate researcher, a legitimate scientist, or a professor at Harvard or Stanford. There's a lot of other places you can go to get funding other than Jeffrey Epstein. And it's the same with these Rothschilds. There is a lot of other places they could have gone for this money. There's a reason they chose to go with Jeffrey Epstein. This is an interesting one. Here's a draft letter to David and Eric de Rothschild, which I would like to sign as soon as possible. If you agree, it may even make sense to convey the message by email with a letter to follow, as time is so short. And it says, the Rothschild name. We, the undersigned members of the Rothschild family, would ask you either withdraw your 13th resolution at the General Meeting of Paris Orleans on 24th September 2015, or add to an appropriate prefix the name Rothschild so that it is clear to which Rothschild group is being referred to. It has been a cornerstone of our family's policy that our respective interests should be identified by a prefix. We therefore object strongly to the investment holding company Paris Orleans changing its name to Rothschild & Company without such a prefix. Lord Rothschild and Sir Evelyn de Rothschild were both asked in May 2013 to give their views on the differences between the Edmond de Rothschild Group and the two Rothschild banks, N.M. Rothschild and Sons Limited and Bank Rothschild. Attached to this letter is the opinion which we gave to your chosen arbitrator and which gave our views to why we thought a prefix was called for. So essentially they're saying they don't want the bank to be called just Rothschild without some kind of warning that it's this specific Rothschild group. And you would think that, I think what goes to my mind is like, it's probably because they have a bad feeling about this. You're doing business with Jeffrey Epstein. And this is 2015. We don't want to be associated with that. And Jeffrey Epstein chimes in here. Could this cloud market perception confuse the public? Difficult to say. That it inflicts damage to who? Inflict damage. C2 should be better worded. Okay, so very interesting that you have Jeffrey Epstein involved in depth with these decisions with this Rothschild group. And we've seen different Rothschild associations over the years. All right, so before Flak Magnet, if we get him, I don't know, maybe he's having some technical difficulties. Let's see here. Check my messages. Let's see. So, yeah, I'm looking at the Melania Trump wall here, and again, it's just a mix of stuff that you've probably already seen and some inappropriate stuff and some fake stuff, but I'm looking to see if we can find any real stuff or what looks to be real. I think the picture with her in Epstein's lap may be real. I think these are real, so I think we're okay to share these. But clearly, like, they had a relationship, and for her to come out and say, like, there's no relationship, that makes it suspect. And to call out the charges like, oh, I've never been involved with children or this or that or the other, it is just so strange. So yeah, so before Flat gets here, let's take a look at this one more time here, because this is just weird.
Afternoon. The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. Fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been circulating on social media for years now. Be cautious about what you believe. These images and stories are completely false. My name has never appeared in court documents, depositions, victim statements, or FBI interviews surrounding the Epstein matter. I have never had any knowledge of Epstein abuse of his victims. I was never involved in any capacity. I was not a participant, was never on Epstein's plane, and never visited his private island. I have never been legally accused or convinced of a crime in connection with Epstein's sex trafficking, abuse of minors, and other repulsive behavior. The false smears about me from mean-spirited and politically motivated individuals and entities looking to cause damage to my good name, to gain financially and climb politically, must stop. Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony. Each and every woman should have her day to tell her story in public if she wishes, and then her testimony should be permanently entered into the congressional record. Then, and only then, we will have the truth. Thank you.
It's so weird. Okay, so these are verified historical photos with Melania Trump, with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Jez face Maxwell? I don't know. Verified historical photos. You see a Mar-a-Lago party, February 2000. Heidi Klum's Halloween party, 2000. New York social event, 2000. Palm Beach event, 2000. Social function, 2001. Dolce & Gabbana opening, 2002. So clearly, she knew who these people were. And there are a plethora of photos with Donald Trump and these people that are verified. So we also have this email here, which I will let you all read. I'm not going to read it out loud, but it's pretty grotesque, and it's like, I don't know if I can put this kind of shit past these people now. I really don't. I mean, I feel like some of these folks are just like fucking animals. I mean, they get off on hurting others. And this kind of email right here is just like par for the course when you go through these things. Just absolutely disgusting. And it takes me back to like when Trump would say like, oh, it's locker room talk. No, it's not, dude. That's what you do. And that's fine. You want to live your life like that? Okay. It's when you hurt kids that it bothers me. Like, did Epstein introduce and have a hand in Donald Trump getting with Melania Trump? I don't know. And I really don't fucking care. The only reason I would care is if it happened when she was like 14. Then I would fucking care. But I don't think that's the case. Even if they did get together because of Epstein, I don't think at that time she was a minor. And so I really don't give a fuck. What I care more about are the things that involve minors. And Donald Trump, like in the 80s and the 90s, there's a lot of smoke there, y'all. A lot of smoke. Well, I haven't heard back from Flack, so I imagine he's having some kind of technical difficulty, as per usual with Mr. Magnet. We might come on later and do a little Epstein space late tonight. It is Friday night, so you never know. However, this is going to do it for my news wrap. Y'all, if you pray, if you meditate, put positive energy out there. If you pray. I mean, whatever it is you do, your higher belief system, let's ask for their help in this Iran issue. Because I think the president bit off more than he could chew. And let's just pray we can get out of this no worse than it already is. And when I say that, I mean the problems that it's going to cause to global supply of different things. And dead civilians. And civilians without a home in the millions. These are all things we're going to have to deal with. What's that old saying? You break it, you buy it. Israel seems to be okay with just destroying it. And I don't understand that. I really don't. We went from a possible two-state solution to Israel just wiping out. I mean, Donald Trump basically said what Israel was doing in that social post, wiping out an entire civilization. What he threatened Iran with is what Israel has essentially done to Palestine. Ay, ay, ay. So let's pray that this pause becomes a legitimate peace deal and we can move forward without any more attacks, without anybody else dying. That would be wonderful. And Israel, if you could get on the boat of not wanting to kill people, that would be great too. I don't understand this war after war after war after war. Yikes. And that is the current state of things, folks, on this April 10th. Have a good weekend, y'all. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Gabriel Speaks podcast.